All right, episode two. We're going to pick up right where we left off in episode one. We're going to continue watching Bashar answering some of these submitted questions. And just went back a couple seconds from where we ended off in the last video. And we'll keep going, see what he says, see if I have anything to say, see what you think. All right, let's jump right into it.
Sometimes things will come along that will synchronistically be opportunities to do bigger things, bigger versions of acting on your excitement, but it isn't necessary that that happens. Because again, as long as you are always choosing what is more exciting than anything else, even on a simple level, then you are following the formula and you are having a life of following your passion. Again, passion doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be jumping up and down with your hair on fire or doing monumental things. But the idea in general is that this person is doing something where they're comparing themselves to other people, which you never should do. Because the idea is you are a unique individual. And what may feel like an expansion to someone won't necessarily feel like an expansion to you. So you have to get in touch with the fact that in talking about doing spiritual practices, that these spiritual practices include the idea of actually acting physically on the things that are representative of having more excitement than any other choice in them. Because many times people on your planet, when they talk about doing spiritual practices, are simply doing things for themselves and not for others in terms of sharing their gifts. They're not examining what they could be doing in service to humanity that is representative of being of service.
Yeah, I'll pause there because there's a couple things. Backtrapping into the beginning, sort of started with him in the middle of an answer to a previously asked question, which you would have heard in episode one. Basically, somebody here was writing in and saying that they felt like they were kind of stuck and their life wasn't expanding, and people around them were buying homes, having families, having kids, and that they weren't moving forward. Um, and that's what he's responding to here, talking about not comparing yourself to others and trying to give a better understanding of what it might mean to follow your excitement and passion and what that might be. But at the beginning here, he mentioned that excitement and passion doesn't necessarily have to revolve around large scale things. In order to follow your passion, it doesn't mean you're jumping up and down. You're screaming at the top of your lungs. You're skydiving. You're looking for a new career. You're moving. You're switching houses. It can be all those things, but it's easy to devalue or diminish the relatively smaller scale things that we experience moment to moment that we can also view as passions and excitement. We're just, I think, used to using the word excitement and exciting for. We have a narrow definition of what that means, of what your body language and how you feel. It has to be at a certain level, a certain height for us to consider it sort of excitement. I think Bashar here is giving us permission to give ourselves permission to expand our definition of excitement and recognize excitement in a way that we might not in the past, might not have in the past, or in a scale that we may not have associated with it excitement. So, even as much as, hey, I'd rather, while I'm sitting at my desk here, I'd like to recline my chair a little bit, or lower my chair, raise my armrest so it's a little more comfortable. Yeah, that's a little more, that makes what I'm doing here, if I'm working or sitting at my desk, a little more comfortable. It's a little exciting to me. I'm a little more excited about that than if I was sitting in a less comfortable position, right? It's a very, very mundane example there. But, that as opposed to reserving the concept of excitement for something as large as starting a family or getting a new job or starting a business, or even meeting up with friends, you haven't seen in a long time. All those things are definitely exciting, can be, but we should recognize excitement and passion in the smaller scale, everyday, moment to moment aspect of things. Um, so while he, in response to this question, Bashar is um, giving examples uh, of things that can represent your passion or excitement that aren't large scale things. And that just reminded me that, after coming across Bashar, I had to kind of take that concept and allow myself to recognize excitement in small things, right? Because even if you don't have an awareness that those small things can be exciting, you may feel more bored and stagnated in your life, right? And rather, you're waiting for something exciting to happen because your definition of something exciting is very grand and very narrow, right? Therefore, by comparison, everything I'm doing in my house or with my family or at work is not exciting and not representative of passion because it doesn't fit into my now more narrow definition of excitement. So even just being aware that we can have that different perspective on smaller things can give you more peace and joy and relaxation in your day-to-day life that you may now or in the past have considered boring as or mundane, or I'm just sitting around waiting for something exciting to happen rather than recognizing that exciting things can be and are always happening every moment of the day.
A lot of times, the idea of acting on your passion means you are giving something to someone else. You are actually expressing a gift that other people will find necessary to receive in their lives. So, while it's all well and good that you feel you are growing at work, and that should be a signal to you of what we're talking about, because growing at work means you are doing something that is helping other people. You are being of service in the job that you do for the other people also doing similar jobs in the same business. So that should be your first clue that in order to expand your life in other areas, you also need to be doing things that are serving other people. If you have gifts to share, share them. If you need to write a book, write it. If you need to do a piece of art, do it. If you need to compose a piece of music, do it. The idea is that if you're holding your gifts back, if you're not acting on those things outwardly in service to humanity to give them things they may be waiting for you to give them, then that's why your life is not expanding, because you're not actually taking the action on the things that would be the gifts that you have to share with humanity.
Yeah, I'll stop there for a second because this was really important thing for me to learn and is really basically 100% the reason I'm making these videos. My last video and this one is for a long time I've been, living in my head, questioning things, exploring ideas, um, and having a very personal journey that was very isolated to me and within myself, which is not a bad thing, but there may come a time where a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, you're doing all these things privately and studying and learning things and expanding and growing, and you may feel like you hit a dead end, or you're like, okay, but what do I do with all of this now? It doesn't seem to be affecting my day-to-day life in the way I'd prefer. And Bashar's point here is that there's a point where you can't just keep your expansion to yourself. You're not really expanding if the things you've learned and uh, the new perspectives you have are not being manifest outward into the physical reality that you're in, right? So that they can then go on to help other people expand, right? So your point of being in this reality is to regain contact with your higher self, start expanding, start following your joys and passions. And once you start doing that, the effects become outward and you start reflecting back into reality, um, by using your gifts and your passion in a way that you're doing it for yourself because you enjoy doing it, but then the universe and synchronicity and all of our higher selves can start using the expression of your passion, from their perspective. They can start using your passion, your action, to start engaging with other lives and helping other lives expand, whether you know that's happening or not. If you're just expanding within yourself, isolated and alone, you're sort of, while there's definitely times when you should be doing that and may need to do that, if that's all you're ever doing and you lived and died just trying to expand yourself within, then you may not have fully fulfilled your purpose here in this physical reality, on this planet, in this life, on this earth. Because the way that synchronicity in the system works seems to be that everybody, to run at full capacity and full efficiency and get you the life and the experiences that you prefer, you need to outwardly express, add back into reality the things that you've learned and expanded on, so that the higher perspectives can start utilizing those things, and then the person next to you or your neighbor or your spouse or somebody online who has expanded in one way may share something, even just posting something online, or me hopefully sharing this video, maybe one word or one sentence I say helps trigger a new perspective in somebody else's mind, right? And then, uh, but at the same time, I'm feeling fulfilled because simply making these videos is exciting and interesting to me, um, right? And then somebody else I know shares a perspective because that's their highest passion, and they're sharing something they're excited about, and then I take that on, right? It's like all these things can start connecting, and it opens the door for new synchronicities and possibilities and an accelerated expansion, um, simply by taking action outside the self. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in big ways, what we might consider big ways. It's small steps like this, right? And that's part of the formula: follow your highest joy to the extent you're most capable at any given time. So here, I have a microphone, I have video, a video camera, and I know how to upload to YouTube. I really like talking about this stuff and exploring, and the things I learned from Bashar really helped me, and I'd like to share in more detail, with people willing to listen, how it's affected me, and I'm looking to sort of dig down more into the day-to-day minutia, which Bashar tries to do in his Q&As. Well, not tries to do, does do in his Q&As. Um, and I really like that. I like hearing when people ask the real practical questions, like these people are doing here, which is, yeah, but what about when I'm really bored or things feel mundane and I feel like I'm waiting for excitement, or I actually have to go to work, or my back hurts? How do I follow this formula and do this stuff when I keep running into these sort of boring, painful, tedious, mundane parts of life? I really, I am excited about chatting about those things with people and working our way through it. Um, so my version of taking the last 6, 7, 8 years of sort of exploring the world and philosophies and religions and different perceptions and things and perspectives internally. After watching Bashar, it really felt like it was time. Hey, take a step, even if it's a small step, outside of yourself and start acting on your passion. And that's what I'm doing with these videos. Whether anyone watches it or not, it's what is exciting to me to do right now, and I'll keep doing it until it is no longer interesting or exciting. Um, and I trust that this expression of myself into reality is beneficial to someone somewhere in some way, if not only just to myself, right? It may be that me making these videos, maybe nobody ever watches them, but what it's doing to me internally and what I'm learning and giving myself permission to do and learning about myself by making these videos is enough for me to help people in other ways that have nothing to do with YouTube or videos, right? So your higher mind has a much wider perspective and sees many pathways that you don't see. So I'm viewing this, and from learning from Bashar, a lot of my energy is going into not worrying too much about the view counts on these videos or comments on it, or if anyone even sees it. I'm just doing it because it seems exciting and interesting and accessible and the correct thing for me to do, a correct thing for me to do right now. And if I get, from my higher self, if I lose interest, um, I'll take that as an arrow pointing in another direction. But if I make these videos and nobody's watching, but I'm still enjoying making them, I will make them as long as it's enjoyable and exciting to me, even if the number of views does not increase. Um, that's where Bashar's coming from with his messaging. He'll very often say he would be doing these transmissions and teaching whether anybody is listening or not, because it's an expression of his highest passion and it's what he wants to do. And he believes through much more experience living this way than we currently have that it's of benefit to himself and to many others, and trusts in synchronicity and for the higher selves to make all the connections and invitations and appointments and things that need to be made, while our job is just to follow the excitement and act out the excitement so that it can be used um, for the generation and co-creation of a higher way of living.
So take a cue from the fact that you have grown at work doing something that helps other people and incorporate that attitude and that behavior in the rest of your life by doing the things you are passionate to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This person is asking, if I experience a situation that I don't like and I don't have the time or opportunity to immediately explore the beliefs that led to this situation, what would you recommend as a permission slip or a tool to learn a routine to switch realities faster? What can I immediately do in my mind to become more aware and learn the habit of perceiving this reality as not preferred by me and switching to a reality that I do prefer?
Okay, so there's a lot there. I think I know how Bashar is going to answer, so I'll wager a guess. But before I do that, just in case someone's listening or watching that doesn't know Bashar well enough at this point or his teachings, they're talking here about following excitement, switching realities, the things they prefer. A real quick summary is Bashar's perspective and view of the way our physical reality works is that essentially um, all realities and anything that can happen already exists as a series of, we can call them still frames. So, this gets into very interdimensional, multi realities kind of thing. Um, and the idea is that each of us is a conscious perspective that is rapidly shifting through pre existing realities billions of times every second, right? So think of a film strip or film going through a projector at a movie theater. One frame, it's only a series of still frames, and one moves in front of the lens and that gets projected. One moves in front of the lens, gets projected, and that creates an illusion of motion. Um, and that's one way we can perceive the way our reality is working. So every time my hands are moving like this, or I'm speaking, or anything's happening, anything I'm watching moving, an airplane's moving, what's happening is it's a series of still freeze frame realities, right? Three-dimensional physical realities that are frozen in time, and you're slowly going from one to the next one to the next one. So if I'm deciding to reach over here and grab my phone, right, my brain, my consciousness has decided it wants the phone, and the way that I know how to do that in this reality is to move my hand over to the phone. So I'm somewhat unconsciously learning to be more consciously moving from this reality to this reality to this reality to this reality to this reality, until I grab my phone and pull it back, right? But these are all still frames that you're sort of switching into. So this person, and what kind of hinders us from more consciously being able to do that and maybe make bigger changes rather than consciously, going small frames at a time to do movement. Maybe you can, have large changes take place over a shorter amount of frames per second. Um, this person is essentially saying, how can I achieve that ability, which is, basically being fully connected to my higher self and having this ability with clarity and consciousness and confidence say, I prefer this. I currently have back pain, right? And I want to, instead of moving through these billions and billions of realities at the pace I normally would, and working on getting my back pain and stretching and all this, they're asking, is there a way I can sort of, quote unquote, snap my fingers and just jump directly to the reality where I don't have back pain and not do all the in between, not experience all the in between stuff, right? And they're saying, Bashar's teaching is always follow. The way to do that is follow this formula, right? Of following your highest excitement and eliminating any obstacles to that, right? Finding these beliefs that you have, these core beliefs that keep you from following your excitement. This person basically asked, how can I achieve the result I want without doing the thing that you taught us to do that leads to that result? So I imagine here Bashar is going to say, this person's saying they don't have time. And really what I think that comes down to is they're not prioritizing that, or maybe they have a false perspective that in order to do this, you need to set apart hours out of time, or take off of work, or, isolate yourself, or, abdicate your responsibilities and make time for this. But, you can do this every moment of the day, or every other moment, or every 100 moments of the day. You can constantly be practicing this and finding your beliefs and analyzing them and letting go of the ones that don't serve you best all throughout the day. I think Bashar is basically going to say here, no to this person. No, there's no shortcut cutting corners. The formula is pretty easy to do. It is cutting corners. All the corners that we've dealt with as humans in this reality for so long that have kept us from sort of gliding through life. The formula is what speeds up the process of getting there, and then allows you to more consciously choose what you prefer and move in that direction in life. So I think he's going to say here basically, no, you can't cut those corners. The corners are already being cut, and this is the fastest way to achieve that.
All right. Let's go back to the first sentence in that question. Read it again and then stop.
If I experience a situation that I don't like and I don't have the time or opportunity
Stop. This is avoidance of looking at your belief system. Make the time. Make the opportunity. You are not making the time to look at your belief systems. You're not creating an opportunity within your schedule. Keeping so busy that you can't do that is an avoidance mechanism. Because if you start relaxing into yourself and not be in such a hurry to be busy with everything that prevents you from having the time, then you are avoiding the issue of looking at the beliefs, and that's what you need to do in order to change the beliefs in a way that would allow you to experience more of what you prefer. So you have to stop avoiding doing the process of examining your beliefs to let go of the ones that don't work for you.
Yeah, this is tough. And, I've been to this place where this question asker is coming from many times during the process, even after listening to Bashar and learning a bunch. Is, we've all had these lifestyles and perspectives where we're carrying around these beliefs that really hinder us and weigh down on us. And then any alternative we're offered, right? Bashar saying, all right, just follow this formula. Even that even though it's a simpler process and will reduce the burdens that we've been carrying around, it can feel initially like another burden being placed on top of what we already have, right? Oh, here's another thing I have to learn how to do in order to feel relief and peace and, achieve the goals I want. Now I have to learn a formula and practice this formula and squeeze that into my schedule, right? It's very, very easy to slip into that perspective and that mindset, but it's just not the reality. The reality is it takes no additional time, really. I mean, you can go about it many different ways. There may be people that do prefer to take an hour out of their day or 30 minutes and sit down and really kind of meditate and, put on some soothing tones or some music, meditation music, and really think these things through kind of in a singular sitting for the day. The way I do it more so is throughout the day, my goal is to achieve an awareness of, and you could break it down into small steps. So rather than uh, trying to be aware of these, beliefs that are stopping you from following your joy, and at the same time trying to undo and remove them, rather than trying to find them and remove them at the same time, you may want to approach it as, let me make it my goal to just be more and more aware of these beliefs that I'm running into, and I'll set aside another time in the future to work on eliminating them. So an example might be, come up with some buzzwords that are kind of limiting words. Something like, I can't, I shouldn't, I'm not able to, that's too hard, I don't have time, that's not something I'm good at, I'm not creative, I'm not this, I'm not that, right? Maybe your initial goal is to be aware and to acknowledge whenever you are saying those things throughout the day, right? So, and then stop yourself, just acknowledge that you're doing it. And then if you don't feel like you have the energy or the mind space at that moment to start analyzing that belief and working towards eliminating it, just say it's enough to acknowledge that it's there. And already at that point, you're in a state of communicating much more directly with your higher self, and uh, your higher self will breathe a sigh of relief and it will be excited for you. And if you continue doing that, it will make known and it'll give you more opportunities, probably more and more quickly as you do that, to eliminate those beliefs. But let's just say, okay, I'm talking to somebody and it's I've always wanted to do this, but I can't. It's just not something I'm capable of. Then stop yourself there. And I'll literally rewind and rephrase the sentence out loud. Even if I'm talking to somebody else, I've been doing that. So I'll say, that's just not something I can do. I'm not capable of. I can't do that. I've never been able to do it. I'll stop myself and I'll say, it. Uh, I am excited by that. That thing does interest me. Um, in the past, I've thought about doing it and I wasn't successful. But, there may come a time where, I revisit that. Or maybe it's just, maybe it turns out it's not for me, even though it's exciting for me. Right. And any way you want to rephrase it, right? Just acknowledge and try to undo just verbally for yourself the belief that you ran against. It's too hard. I'll say that all the time. While I'm talking to you, I might be like, it's really hard to notice these things throughout the day, these belief systems. Wait, I'll go back. It's not hard to notice them. I just haven't been paying attention. I haven't prioritized paying attention to them. It's actually really easy to notice them. There are many ways to make it easier to notice them, but I haven't taken the time to be creative and help myself become more aware of them in the past, right? So rephrasing things that way. Then like I mentioned, okay, I'll create a list in my head of buzzwords that I'm looking for throughout the day. Too hard. Maybe start with one. That's too hard. Anytime I hear myself say or think that's too hard, I'll acknowledge it. And then you're keeping a running tally. Then you'll start to learn, like, man, I say that's too hard like 6 times a day, all day, every day, right? And then the awareness is enough to bring you to the next goal, which can be, you'll learn which of those beliefs stands out the most. Oh man, I've been saying too hard very frequently, and I've been saying I can't very frequently. Right now, next time you're relaxed, or it comes up and you have a little more energy, right where to start looking, to start breaking down these beliefs. So why do I think I can't do this thing? Why do I think I can't do that thing? Why do I believe that there's anything I can't do? Who told me there's stuff that I cannot do, I'm not capable of? Right? Did I tell myself that? Did my parents tell me that? Did my teachers in school tell me that? Does the internet tell me that? Do I believe them or not? Right? And then find a point. Maybe you say, I don't believe them. Even though I haven't proven it to myself yet, I fully believe that I can do anything I'd like, as long as it excites me. And then you can eliminate those beliefs, right? You don't regain those beliefs again once you eliminate them, unless you choose to go back to them. Um, but you may hit a roadblock. You may say, man, you may, while you're analyzing that, say, yeah, I do believe that there are things that I'm not capable of. Um, and then you want to figure out where that comes from. Okay, so it's not a belief that I got from somebody else. I've convinced myself that there are things I cannot do. Why do I believe that's true? And then you can start analyzing those things. But break it up into steps if that works for you. Work on awareness first, being aware of your belief systems, and then reserve, uh, the process of eliminating them for a future date, or do it all in one shot throughout the day if you want. What I typically do is I'll run into a thing, I'll acknowledge it, and then I'll play the role in my own head, or sometimes out loud with a bit of an impression. I'll act as Bashar because I've watched so many of these. I'll ask a question as if I'm, in front of Bashar speaking, and then I'll answer it from Bashar's perspective. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm very confident that I've reacted to my own question in the same manner that Bashar would have, and then I can be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I get it. Right. All right. So, which really is just saying I already knew that. I'm just using the character or the being of Bashar to relay back to me things that I have already learned from him or already knew, or things coming from your higher mind, through the being of Bashar. Let's keep going. A little bit longer.
Make the time, create the opportunity. That's the most important thing you could do when that issue comes up of a belief or a situation or a reflection that you don't prefer. So you have to incorporate the ability into your schedule of having the time to do that. Otherwise, again, you're not following the formula. You're not allowing yourself to have the opportunity to look at those things for one reason or another. That's usually fear-based. So take the time. There's nothing to be afraid of in having the time to examine those things. You're not going to miss anything else. You can allow synchronicity to be the organizing principle that will allow you to accomplish what you need to accomplish without assuming that you have to be so busy that you cannot look within yourself or take the time to do so.
All right. I'll actually stop there. That'll be the last bit of the clip we listened to today. Um, and yeah, that's just a great thing is if you're if you're considering these things Bashar is teaching, and you keep running into the problem that this person had, or the obstacle, or the challenge that this person had, which is I don't feel like I have time or opportunity in my day to day life to follow this formula and to start eliminating these beliefs and connecting with my higher self. Start imagining versions of that. That means whatever the scope of that task in your mind is likely much larger than it actually needs to be for you to move forward. So, I guess like I mentioned earlier, you maybe when you're hearing this, analyze yourself. You have an image of your head of needing to take an hour out of your day and get a meditation mat and sound bowls and a bunch of crystals, and you need to isolate yourself and meditate, right? If 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 you thinking that that's the only way to do it is keeping you from doing it at all, then you need to go in and creatively change what you think needs to happen. Change that image to something much more achievable. Shrink it down. Okay, when I think that I need to do it this way, I don't do anything. So how can I envision following the formula, following my highest joy, hunting down these beliefs that hinder me from following my joy? What's the smallest form I can create that, right? Okay, I can do it in 10-second increments, a couple times throughout the day. I can start a little timer, or whenever I think of it, I can stop and give myself 10 seconds. Okay, why do I think, are my shoulders relaxed? Why aren't they relaxed? Oh man, I'm stressed about this thing at work. Okay, why are you stressed about it? See how far you get in 10 seconds. Uh, and then either cut yourself off after 10 and revisit it later, or, find yourself thinking about it for maybe 30 seconds or a minute or 3 minutes. And now you've done way more than you set out to do with the 10-second goal, and you still haven't gotten anywhere close to the hour you thought you needed to set aside to do it, but you've just spent 3 minutes, working towards following the formula. So shrink the scope. If the scope of what you want to accomplish, the way you're envisioning the reality of having to do it, is too big and is hindering you from doing it, work on changing that image to something more doable, and then see if that's something you can find yourself automatically doing throughout the day. That may be the ultimate goal. If it's something if you don't feel like at this point you can set aside time to do something, create an image in your head of not needing to set aside separate time. Find an image of your head of what would it look like if I could do this, between every time I click this button on my computer that I click 100 times a day. I think about, was there any point today where I said I can't do something? And then write it down and then save it for later and then revisit that at another time. Come up with a version that works for you. And what that does is, just by doing that, right, imagining a version that's more achievable, you've eliminated the belief that you don't have time, like this person's question. I don't have the time or opportunity during my day to follow the formula. Simply by imagining a more accessible version of following the formula that's more achievable, you've eliminated the false belief you had that you don't have the time or opportunity. So maybe that's something to think about and work on this week or the next couple days, or whenever you want to, whenever you feel excited about it. And until the next video, I'll see you around. All right, bye.